Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke and I'm so glad you're here. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to my podcast. And if you're back again, welcome back. A lot of you have been following me for a very long time. I actually heard from a listener the other day that was on my radio show listening for over 35 years, and now she's listening to the podcast. So I want to say hello to Helen. How are you, Helen? Thank you for tuning in. And I want to thank everybody for, tuning in and getting up-to-date information, because today, different than 4 decades ago, we had very little information. Today, we're bombarded with information, but we never know whether it's right. We never know whether it's true. Sometimes today we have to research the research just to find out if we're learning the right things and getting the right information. So I'm going to bring you the best of the best guests, the best minds in the industry, and I want to make sure that you have this available to you. Remember, tell your friends to go to my webpage, www.drjeffreyburke.com. When you're there, tap on the Honest Health logo. It'll take you to Spotify, and you can listen to the audio version. Or you can tap on the YouTube logo, and then you can watch the interviews anytime that it's convenient for you. So today, I know you're going to be excited. I've got an amazing guest today. Ric Scalzo is back with us today. And if you're tuning in, I want to make sure we get his background, and we've got a lot of territory to cover today. So please sit back, enjoy, and make sure you tell your friends to go to this episode because they're going to love it. Ric began his journey into herbal and naturopathic medicine in 1980, studying naturopathic herbal medicine, eclectic herbal medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and various diagnostic practices. He received a master's degree in herbal medicine from the School of Herbal Medicine and an honorary doctor of naturopathic medicine from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. Renowned for his innovations in herbal medicine and his personal commitment to retaining herbal integrity. Today, Ric continues to innovate herbal remedies, and he's a leader in the movement to integrate regenerative agriculture in the world of herbal medicine. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Ric, how are you?
Hey, Jeff. Once again, thank you so much for having me on your show.
I'm so glad to have you here. I told somebody the other day, I said, I'm just developing an amazing relationship with you. And I've been a silent stalker of Ric's for decades and followed his career and taken so many of the products that he's formulated over the years. And, today I thought we would delve into some of the questions that I know I hear from people all the time. So How about we answer some of those? Are you game?
I'm game. Let's do it.
All righty. Oh, you're going to be fantastic. It's going to be so exciting. One of the biggest questions coming out today, and I'll stress this question with how mentality has changed with one part of it, which is organic. Because I remember when organic was the thing to do, the place to go, and it was the end all for everything. But a lot of things have changed within those soil-based fields in those organic fields. So here's the question. How does regenerative farming agriculture differ from organic? And there might be some crossover, but I know there's a big difference.
Well, as you know, now your listeners will know that I have been involved in both. For 30 years, I was involved in organic farming over 250 acres. And I can just tell you, roughly what it entailed. It entailed tending to the soil, putting compost in the soil, cover cropping in the off-season, crop rotation. It involved applying organic fertilizers when and if necessary on specific crops. And but it also included tilling. It included, sowing of your soils or sowing of your crops, tilling of the soils, and the bed making process required something known as rotivating, which breaks up the soil into fine particles. So the latter of what I just said is actually viewed in regenerative organic farming as a violation of sustainability, because every time we turn over soil, every time we rotivate soil, we expose the soil to microbiome damage, especially the more fine we rotivate or plow the fields. The microbiome is exposed and it is damaged, if not destroyed. So the big difference between regenerative farming and organic farming is the soil food web, how we tend to the soil food web. And for the listeners who do not know that term, or this is the first time you're hearing it, what it means is basically the vast myriad of microorganisms in the soil, the microbiome of the soil. That's not a term that's unfamiliar to most people. We have our own microbiome. The soil has its own microbiome. So when we tend to the microbiome of the soil, there's a vast, let's just call it a population, collaboration, if you will, of the microorganisms in the soil, which include the hyphae, the mycelia, the bacteria, the fungi, the nematodes, the protozoa, the earthworms, and I can go on and on and on. But these are the constituents of the soil that actually reconstruct our soil and are working for our, I want to say betterment, because they are the facilitators to bring nutrients into the plants, which when we consume, we are consuming at the advantage of all this biome within the soil.
Wow. There's a big difference, a big, huge difference. And my other question is regenerative farming agriculture being adopted around the world? Is it located only in certain areas?
I would say right now, Jeff, the emphasis on popularizing regenerative agriculture is largely in the United States, a little bit in South America, and somewhat in Central America. I talked to my buddies in Europe, and it hasn't caught on over there yet. But, it will, because it just makes sense. And, when you look at the dynamics of what is nature's operating system, we can call it an operating system whereby essentially the insects, the earthworms, the fungi, the bacteria equal the soil food web, and they are working for our betterment. In a way, here you have a scenario where you have plants reaching their life cycle, decaying, producing organic matter back into the soil. During the life cycle of the plant, they are involved in engaging in photosynthesis. So you have the energy of the sun, you have the decaying organic matter from the end of the life cycle of a plant going back into the soil, whereby the soil food web begins to harness that as their food, as essentially carbon, carbohydrates, and sugars. So they use that as their fuel to bring nutrients into the roots of the plant structure to regrow the next cycle of plants. So this is a kind of what we call nutrient cycling. And it's so magically at work when you don't interfere with nature's operating system.
Now, before we go into the next next kind of little channel I want to go down, I think there's something I want to make sure people are learning about, maybe for today for the very first time. You have a brand new venture, and it's getting ready to become a very, very big reality very quickly. And if anyone's looking at your background, you are in Costa Rica. And let's talk a little bit about it. Let's just put it out there and let people know.
Yes, it's true. I am in Costa Rica. I have a regenerative organic farm in Costa Rica where we are growing about 12 tropical medicinal plants. And, this is the foundation of a new brand that I'm starting. The name of the brand is Kokora, and it's a Japanese term which essentially translates to the interface between soul and heart and mind and emotions. So it's a beautiful name that I've always been attracted to. And it's a herbal products brand, but it's not just a herbal products brand. It's a regenerative herbal products brand using a significant amount of regenerative herbs grown both on our farm here and other regenerative organic farms in the U.S. And it's about to launch at the middle to end of September. And I'm very excited because this kind of speaks to my passion to do whatever I can. And it is a passion. I just feel compelled. There's this term which goes along with Kokora. It's a Japanese term called ikigai, and it translates largely to your purpose in life, your flow, what brings you into a flow, and what keeps you vital for 100 years, if you will. And this is my ikigai, and this is my purpose. And I feel like there's still a lot I can contribute in this field. And regenerative farming and regenerative product development is what I get so excited about.
It's exciting, and I know people are going to be very, very excited to see these products. And that's it's amazing that, I mean, I've seen videos, and actually we were going to talk a little bit today about passion flower. You actually were there during this harvesting period of passion flower. I know last week or the week before, and you were sending videos, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is the most beautiful passion flower I've ever seen. And I mean, the video actually showed them right from the field, right to the stages of what they do. And your passion flower is really healthy this year.
It is, isn't it? It's just stunning how beautiful it looks. And this was a second cutting. So usually in the course of a full cycle, we get about 5 or 6 cuttings. However, I wanted to, if I can just take a moment to
Sure.
share with the audience how we get to this point, because it doesn't happen, automatically. It's
Right.
and there's a collaboration, and it starts with how we germinate passion flower seed. One of the poorest seeds to germinate because it has a hard shell. So, in order to get passion flower to germinate, you have to scarify it. And that's a new term for your audience. So, I'm going to explain what that means.
That's a new term for me.
Is it?
Yeah.
We get out a piece of sandpaper and we take one seed at a time,
Oh
and
my.
we do this. We scar it.
Really?
That's what scarifying means. We scar it so that the inside germ is exposed. And we do that for tens of thousands of seeds, one at a time.
Oh my word.
Second step is we germinate it. And typical germination of passion flower without scarification is 10-20%. Our germination rate is 80 to 90% when we scarify it.
Wow.
So something I learned along the path, and it just, it's worked for me. Then to propagate it, after we germinate it in the greenhouse, we put it in little troughs to grow out to maybe 3, 4, 5 inches, and it grows a little root, and we take those roots and we plant them into the field in 2 rows at a time in each bed, and then after a year we start propagating it. And to propagate it, what happens in 1 year, there is an underground mat of roots. And we dig up those roots and we cut them into 3-inch pieces. And then we allow new growth, 2 or 3 new stalks emerging from every 3-inch piece. And then we plant those. And that's how we then propagate passion flower. So it fills our fields. We've got about 10 acres of passion flower growing in our farm now. And it produces an abundant amount of biomass. But most importantly, because it's regeneratively grown, it's producing an abundant amount of nutrient density. And we've had companies in the U.S., including one who sent our passion flower to Germany for some pretty sophisticated testing, said it was far exceeded the standard levels of its active constituent. So the nutrient or phytochemical density in this passion flower is extremely high. And that's what we want when we're talking about, Kokora and wanting to bring the very best products to the market. It starts here, growing regeneratively and growing plants that have a high level of nutrient density.
So let me ask you a question. At the end of the growing season, do the roots go dormant and then regrow back, or we start the process all over again?
It depends if we're irrigating.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're irrigating, because in Costa Rica we have a wet season and dry season, passion flower needs water. So in the wet season, it's growing abundantly. In the dry season, it can go dormant. But we do irrigate our passion flower fields so we can have year-round harvesting.
So how often do we have to do the reseeding, scratching of the seed? Is that done every year?
No,
No.
no, I haven't scarified
I love that
passion
word.
flower for 3 years now.
Okay.
We just harvest the long running roots underground and cut them up into 3-inch pieces and propagate it that way.
I could not believe the density of the passion flower. It was just mounds. It was gorgeous. It was so green, and just the environment there in the background just made it so much more beautiful. Because passion flower is one of those things that over my many years, you hear about it, and then all of a sudden you stop hearing about it. But right now, I don't know whether it's the state of the country, the state of the world, the state of emotional health, the state of lack of sleep, or whatever it is. But passion flower has become very, very talked about and kind of in the news and on the tip of tongues today.
And I think one of the reasons for that is because it's a very safe herb to use.
Mhm.
And if you look at its therapeutic class that it falls into, it is both a sedative and a anxiolytic, which means it's a herb that reduces or helps to manage anxiety. So, and it helps to promote a more restful night's sleep. So those are the two primary attributes of passion flower. And I think, when you look at the world today, oh my gosh, we are in a state of stress, and people aren't sleeping as well as they should, particularly with sleep maintenance. If I can just explain to people the difference in sleep patterns. For those folks who are listening who have trouble falling asleep, we give that a term, and we call it sleep latency, where it takes you more than 10 minutes to actually fall asleep. If you're falling asleep very quickly, it's probably an indicator that you've overexhausted yourself in the daily activity. And if you're taking 30, 40, 50 minutes, an hour to fall asleep, it probably means that you're experiencing sleep latency, which is largely due to, just too much tension, too much muscular and nerve tension you're carrying in the body.
And I think people are going to see both sides of that. I mean, most people will say they go one way or the other. If you're talking to someone like at a store, they'll say, I fall asleep and then I wake up and I can't go back, or I lay there forever and I'm exhausted and I'm staring at the ceiling 45 minutes later.
That's the other part of it, is those of us who have problems with sleep maintenance, where we can't maintain our sleep through the night. So what happens, and this is the greater population who have sleep challenges, they actually wake up between 1 and 3 p.m. a.m. So they're up, they can't fall back to sleep, and this is really, what wakes you up at that time in the morning. This is the liver cycle at that time in the morning, and so we're metabolizing a lot. We're taking and distributing, processing, metabolizing everything we've taken in during the day, and so there's activity going on in the body, and there is also, muscle activity, there's nerve activity, and there could be hormonal activity, as part of this metabolic distribution of our food cycle. So, but it's all governed by the liver systems, and it could spike nighttime cortisol when it shouldn't. And so as a result, we wake up. And I think for those of us who are looking for a full night's sleep straight through, passion flower is a very good herb for that, because it does have a calming effect on the nervous system. It has a calming effect on the muscular system. It reduces anxiety, so it helps promote a better resiliency to stress. I think it's a really good herb when you explore the sleep cycle. For problems with sleep maintenance, I would probably use it as my go-to.
I know people that use passion flower. Some of them say they use it when they're going through stressful times at work. Some of them use it when they travel. I have some friends that are international travelers, so they're hitting time zones. So they'll
Right.
say they'll use it when they're on another place when they're awake, when they usually are asleep, and then they'll use it again for a while when they get back. And then there's a lot of us that use it on a regular basis. I used to be a big tryptophan user. I did valerian for years, but I've been using passion flower now for probably 5 or 6 years, and it makes a difference for me. I'm not a long sleeper, but when I use passion flower, I don't get that, to your point, 1 to 3 in the morning waking up and looking at the wall, because mine is the maintenance one.
It is for most people too, and I think that just speaks to the environment, the societal environment that we're living in
Yeah,
today.
I agree. Question, regenerative agriculture and farming, does this allow us to have crops that are larger in size because of what we're doing to the health of the soil?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got some data points on this,
Hmm.
and you know, mostly related to biomass, but that does equate to size as well. Um, so we studied non-regenerative organically grown turmeric versus first year regeneratively grown turmeric, and the amount of biomass of root structure that we got from that regenerative grown was well, when it was just grown organically, not regeneratively, um, we were getting about 15,000 kilos per hectare. The
Okay.
very first year, when we started to grow it regeneratively, we got 80,000 kilos per hectare, a 5x multiple of increased weight from the same amount of field.
Wow.
The same thing happened with holy basil, Jeff, where we planted holy basil, and the first harvest, um, we typically would get 4 to 5,000 kilos of fresh weight per hectare. We got around 11, maybe 12,000 kilos.
That's incredible.
So the plants were bigger, they were more robust, they were more resilient to pests, and obviously that's not the whole story, though. You would think because we're growing these for medicine, we have to look at the nutrient density and or the phytochemical density of the plant. And in both cases, the nutrient or phytochemical density of turmeric shot up from, we used to get it from Asia, and we were getting about 2 to 3% curcumins
Hmm.
in our turmeric harvest. On our regenerative fields, we're getting over 8%. So
That's
to me, that's meaningful.
that's
It's
absolutely
nice.
meaningful.
It's nice to have the biomass, but it's really nice to have the increased nutrient density.
You would think that with this philosophy, with the population of the world, because in my mind, I'm thinking that regenerative would also increase food production being grown in these fields as well. Um, this should be where everybody's going. That's in my mind, but obviously that's the way it works in my head.
Yeah, I I would think so. In order to manage nutrient cycling in plants, three things are necessary. One is photosynthesis.
Hmm.
That's a given. You have sun, you have plants, you're going to get an interface between the two. So there's going to be photosynthesis. Two, you need the organic matter. And, in plants, as they cycle through, there's always decay, and that decay builds organic matter in the soil. And three, you need carbon. And where do we get our carbon from? The atmosphere is loaded with carbon,
Hmm.
and so plants sequester carbon from the atmosphere. The more, you might say, blanket of green you have on your soil, the more carbon that is getting into the soil. So now you have carbon, you have organic matter, you have the beneficial fungi and bacteria that use that organic matter as their food. And what they do is they actually recycle the nutrients in the organic matter. They break it down and recycle it to the roots of the plant. And this is what kind of enables the plant to grow with more biomass, the plant to take up more nutrients from the soil. You know, this whole thing about nature's organizing system, look at our forest, Jeff. Our forests were grown by the microbiome in the soil. Can you believe that?
Yes.
The largest organism ever discovered is not a whale. It is a cluster of microorganisms that are all connected together in the soil in the Pacific Northwest. So the thing about it is, if you can build forest, if you can get all this dynamism in a forest just because of the untouched microbiome in the soil in the forest, think of what you can produce on a farm. But that's not it. That's not the only story, because while you're growing more nutrients in your food and while you're growing more biomass, which actually lowers farmers' cost, you are also sequestering carbon from the atmosphere
Into the soil.
into the soil.
You
That
know,
makes
it's
sense?
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I really appreciate this because, you know, this is something, it's on the tip of people's tongues today. People are talking and asking questions about regenerative agriculture and farming. They want to know, you know, just like it was 25 years ago when we first started talking about just organic. And but here we have this amazing, you know, amount of information coming our way with studies that are just reinforcing, you know, and crops that are just glowing with the benefits of this kind of procedure. And I think it's amazing. And it's got to be amazing to just, you know, see what's coming out of this soil from all. It takes a lot of love. It takes a lot of tendering. It takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of work. And but when I was watching you harvesting the passion flower, I could see that on everybody's faces that was there. You know, they were just like reaping the harvest, if you will. And it was quite nice. It was quite moving. I actually watched the video like 3 times, so it was
I wish we
wonderful.
could show the video, or at least a picture of that, because it's interesting. I made a comment in that video, Jeff, that this moment we were looking at the passion flower, and I commented to my friend who was there with me. I said, you know what? This moment that we're experiencing at this time, this very moment, didn't happen automatically.
No.
And we should not take it for granted, because this is a colossal moment when we are experiencing the amazing work that the soil food web has accomplished. It's a colossal moment in time. And, we shouldn't take it for granted, because, all life emerges from this place. And if we're talking just about our medicines, think about what we can accomplish with our foods.
Agreed.
With regenerative farming, this is all about building the microbiome of the soil. And, with regenerative farming, the tenets are no till, keep a green cover on your soil at all times, and keep building up the topsoil. The weeds will be managed very nicely by the transformation of the organisms in the soil. A lot of weeds are the first succession that comes up in the soil every spring, particularly grasses. And when you change the nitrogen composition in the soil to ammonium nitrate, you begin to change how these weeds actually, how they thrive in the soil. And they simply can't thrive in that kind of nitrogen. So regenerative farming can manage weeds. It can manage soil erosion. It can manage the whole concept of field flooding, if you will, because it produces better drainage. And but to speak to your observations about the benefits of regenerative farming, we get more nutrients, we get more biomass, we get better medicine, and I'm proud to have Kokora to, to filter all of this through.
There's something I'd love you to talk about because I just love hearing you say it. And I know they call it down there in Costa Rica, they call it Emmy. But, people, they're either coming from a world of chemicals and preservatives and pesticides. And, would you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it's a term I learned this year. Somebody said, "Oh, we need to make some Emmy," and I said, "What is that?" And even though I knew what it was, I didn't know it by that name. But I asked, "What does it mean?" And I was told it means mountain microorganisms. So the way it's made is we go out into the forest floor and we harvest a little bit of the forest in our area. So right next to the farm, we have a nice forest cover. So we go and harvest a little bit of the forest floor, just a little, just scrape off a half inch with all the debris, a little soil, and we bring a pickup truck load of it back into our bioplant. That's what we call it, where we make these preparations. And we mix this soil material from the forest with, the first thing we add is some semolina from rice. It's part of the nutrient feed, carbohydrate that goes into for the microorganisms to feed on. Then we add some yeast. So we mix that up, and then we add some molasses, which is the sugar. So again, carbohydrates and sugar, food for the soil food web. And then once all that is mixed up, we add some cinnamon powder, some clove powder, and some coffee grinds. And the cinnamon and clove actually add a little bit to the preparation to give it an antimicrobial, anti-pathogenic type of quality. Then after it's all mixed up together in the truck, in the back of the pickup, we then take it and we put it in 55-gallon bags, and which serves as like a big tea bag, and fill it up, tie it up, and put it into a 200-gallon tank with water and let it ferment for 2 weeks. And when you take the lid off after 2 weeks, you look at the top of the water and you see a tremendous amount of microorganisms growing in there. And the smell is dynamic. I guess that it's not something you would want to put in your kitchen, but it's earthy, it's alive, and it's something really vital is going on in there. And then we basically take the tea bag out, we take the liquid solution, and that serves as a foliar feed for the plants. And we put it in line to serve in our irrigation system to give it to the roots as well. It's made a tremendous difference in building up our biome of the soil.
So it nutrifies not only the soil, but the plants themselves.
Not just nutrifies, but it also is protecting against pathogens.
And of course, can be sprayed directly on the plants, or do you use it on the soil?
Both. We use it as a foliar feed and as a soil application.
I just found it very interesting. Thank you for going through that, because I think there's just so many layers of this intricate process. But and as far as Kokora is concerned, you're going to be coming out with products that are different. They're going to be something that people are going to be well embraced. And today, people are looking for things that make a difference. And I think that people are going to really, really, really gravitate to the line of products, because I know what's coming, and I think it's going to be beautiful.
It is. And, and what makes regenerative products so amazing is the fact that, aside from the fact that the herbs are grown regenerative organic and they have all these benefits, including carbon drawdown for the climate, they have more nutrient density, they have more phytochemical density, they're drawing down carbon. Those are all beautiful benefits. But then when you put these regenerative herbs into a regenerative product like Kokora, and you say, here guys, let's get behind a product that is going to give you a tremendous health benefit and a tremendous environmental benefit, and and deliver it the way we're producing these products with a new innovative delivery system is going to be delivered into the body in such a way where we not only front load the dose so you get great benefits, but we deliver it so that the absorption is much greater into the body. So the value and the benefits are really significant.
I love the idea about utilizing products that make a difference in my own health and well-being. But the second part of that is I also appreciate what it's doing for the growth process and where it's being grown and everything part of that process as well. And that's been very important to me because there's not been a lot of people that are even heading in this direction. It's very, very groundbreaking. And I think it's amazing because it's not just today we live in a world where people love to talk about things. They love to have talking points and they love to have political points and they like to say, yeah, that would be a good idea. And they leave it on the table and nothing's getting done. And we've gone from a situation in the world around the planet where it's essential for us to start giving back. You can't just, it's like a bank account. You can't just keep writing checks when you're not putting any deposits in. Sooner or later, we're going to crash and burn. So I thank you for what you're doing, and your passion is amazing.
The more you and I talk about this, the more I get energized, because we are invoking all these amazing connections in our soil. One of our taglines these days for Kokora is the connections that make us whole. And, we're busy at work making those connections with our friends in the soil, the biome of the soil. And that's the message we want to get out. And this is probably, going to extend from the soil into the products, where we have real synergy expressed in our products, to the people who consume the products, and then sharing this message of regenerative life with their friends and family. Our hope is that we can begin to build an awareness and consciousness about how we can reverse climate change simply by drawing down carbon through regenerative agriculture.
I love it. The environment where you are down there is just so conducive to amazing growth, and the beauty around you is astounding, and we're all jealous, so we love it. So we get to see the background, so it's beautiful.
I wish you could have just seen. I had a beautiful large toucan just fly in front of me across, and they're such lovely birds. But that's kind of my neighbors right here all over. I have these amazing birds.
It's fantastic. I think one thing I want people to understand is that our industry, and you and I have been around a very long time, and we've seen a lot of changes, and it's also an industry that's going to be perpetually changing because the state of the world is constantly changing, and the way people think about what they do or they don't think about what they do, and how we have a tendency to take our world and our environment and our health for granted, many times. And it's nice to have this awareness, because I think it's going to be something this awareness is going to start to spread like wildfire.
I think so, Jeff. I've been witnessing some of the reports from our industry, journals and publications, seeing what the consumer trends are now, and it kind of speaks to where we are as a society. The trends in consumption are for herbs or herbal products that are addressing sleep, stress, memory, and energy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's at. We all have seen challenges to these 4 areas of life. And this is one of the reasons why I developed this ashwagandha and super mushroom group of powders to consume and put in in water or nut milk as a beverage, because ashwagandha and mushrooms are addressing these components: sleep, stress, energy, memory, and immunity. And so it's just making it really easy for people to participate and share with their friends. And I feel really honored to be able to grow a lot of these herbs here in Costa Rica for Kokora and to formulate and innovate and have them tested at our research institute in Arizona for, for the, the benefits that we all speak about.
And the other thing is, you've rather than just kind of making this a sector, you've actually created a category or categories. Ashwagandha, the category, and the mushrooms, the super mushroom extracts, the category. These are huge categories that are covering a huge amount of the things that are going on every single day with the people ourselves or the people around us. And you hit on a lot of those key areas with sleep problems and emotional health and well-being and stress. And these are huge, gigantic categories. And thank you for really focusing in on these, because I just think it's just so important, and we don't talk enough about it.
A large consumption of the consumer population are consuming ashwagandha and mushrooms now because of these need states. And it occurred to me that I can formulate for you I've done this for 30 years, and with over 10,000 patients, I've gotten a lot of feedback. So I'm not bragging here, but I do know how to formulate. One thing I do is formulate and innovate. And I just, to put mushrooms and put ashwagandha and other adaptogenic herbs together for these benefits we're talking about and come out with real efficacy, I'm beside myself, with herbs that are grown regeneratively as well. Can't wait for people to use these products.
Remember, if you are on social media, make sure that you do look to follow Kokora, LinkedIn, Instagram, and other levels and other platforms coming soon. But if you're on LinkedIn and you're on Instagram, make sure you follow, because you'll be able to see when the releases are coming, new information as it posts. And I want to make sure that everybody stays in the know. And make sure you look for Kokora at a high quality health food store near you, because they will be coming very, very soon. So Rick, to end today, would you mind leaving everybody with a thought for the day from you? It could be on anything you want, but a thought from Rick today.
Yeah, we've been talking about these connections that are unseen. And so my thought for the day, and my hope, that in a busy world that we live in today, that we all can slow down for a moment and be still and take a moment of stillness to observe what is around us, to take in the awe of nature, to witness nature's power of organization and evolution and collaboration, how nature collaborates. And, we could not have evolution if there wasn't collaboration. It's kind of a lesson for us to learn today about, as a society, we need to begin to collaborate with each other in a kind and compassionate way. So my thought is, slow down for a moment. Take a moment of stillness, observe what's around us, and take in the awe.
It even sounds good. Thank you so much for being here today. It's always a pleasure, and look forward to, we're going to be doing this on a monthly basis. So I will have Rick here with me every single month, and we'll be talking about more and more things, more of the products, tying them into what's going on the farm down there, keeping you in the know with regenerative and organic farming. So you understand you're going to be there. So remember, make sure you tell your friends. Go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com, tap on the Spotify for the audio, but I think you're going to want to watch it over at the YouTube channel. You can watch the actual videos. But I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Rick, thank you so much. It's always my pleasure.
Great to
Have
chat.
a great day, everyone. Be healthy, and God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.